Hi, my name is Sarah Herzl. Thank you for joining me today. And today we're going to work with chalk pastels, sometimes called soft pastels. They're really fun to work with. And our subject matter is cake. So it's going to be a yummy hour that we have together. And I'm doing a chocolate cake, but you can do any flavor that you want. All right, let's get started. All right, so this is an example of a finished piece. We're using the soft pastels, or chalk pastels is what I like to call them, of a cake. And it's a fun piece to maybe just play with chalk, play with the pastels, because the shapes are pretty straightforward. You do have the challenges of perspective and dimension and ovals, which we'll sketch through. But, and then you can play with any colors you want. As I'd said earlier, you can do a different flavor cake. So think about what you want, whether you want a carrot cake or a raspberry cake or a white cake, a wedding cake, anything like that. You certainly can change your color palette. But we're going to go with this one. I've got colors pulled out from my box that I'm going to use back and forth for this piece, and I go from light to dark. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually draw our shapes onto our paper. I am using actually this really bright yellow, and this is just construction paper. You can use something fancier if you want to, or but I find, since I'm just kind of playing around and having fun, that a good quality construction paper is going to have enough tooth for what we're trying to do, and I haven't like spent a lot of money on expensive paper if I don't like what I did. So I'm going to put this aside, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the tools we're going to have. Well, I'll just put that back. So we're going to be working with, obviously, our chalk pastels. So this is a set that has these short little sticks. You can get them where they, they're longer, but even if you do that, you're probably going to end up, breaking them in half, because they're, you want to kind of at a workable size. And also, as you go, you're going to want to kind of recreate tips, because you want some sharp areas, so you can kind of turn them around. And this is going to get all over your hands. If that is something that doesn't appeal to you, you certainly can come up with maybe wearing gloves or something like that. But it's actually a very tactile experience. And then it also washes off super easy because it's very water soluble. And you can see now, as I'm touching the edges of our piece, I have actually sprayed this with a fixative that's supposed to lock it and keep the pastels on the paper, but it is still going to come off. So when you're working on your piece, or after you finished it, just put it between pieces of wax paper or something like that until you have decided if you want to frame it or not, because the chalk will continue to rub off and smear. And then so some of the tools we're going to have, in addition to our pastel chalks, you're going to have on hand some of these, what are they called? Q-tips. Okay, you'll have to cut that out. So you have on hand some Q-tips. They help with some of the blending in small areas, or if you don't like to touch or blend with your fingers, you can certainly use these Q-tips. Keep some tissue or something around so you can kind of keep rubbing your fingers and trying to get them clean. We will, at some point when I'm working on this, I'll have too much on my fingers, and so it'll kind of start transferring color in areas that I don't want it to. So I will stop and wash my hands and get some of that off of there. You just want to make sure that anything that you're doing on your paper is not damp or wet, because it will become a muddy mess, and you don't want that. So you do want to work with dry tools, dry hands, but you might feel like you need to kind of wash off and kind of start over. The other thing that we'll have work with is just get some wax paper, and then as you're working, if you'll just kind of put it down on the work that you've already done. So as you're going in areas, we all do have a tendency to kind of move our wrist or move our hand, and this way you have the paper down and it's not going to smudge what you just did. So just you keep that on hand, because we try to work from top to bottom, but it doesn't always work logically, and I kind of work all the way around, even though I know that it's going to smudge, so just keep that on hand. So we're going to start. This is our blank sheet, so we will have to draw our cake on there. Now, you can use really any color chalk you want to do this drawing part. You'll want to use something that you can see. But I don't recommend that you use like a super dark color, because then when you go and you're making your finished piece, you're going to have to cover that up, and so it's a little bit harder to do that. It might transfer. So I'm just going to test a few colors that I'm going to use, and I might just end up using kind of a neutral brown or light brown. So I'm just going to test these colors. I think I'll go with that one. So starting off, good thing about the pastels is that if you make a mark that you are not happy with or you want to change, the great thing is you can actually just use your finger or something and you just smudge it, and then you're going to cover it with other chalk anyway. So I make little tick marks so that I can get my center, because that helps me with my composition. So, and those, of course, I will cover up. So I've got things that, it's not important that it's exactly perfect. It's just so that you can see the page differently than just one large page, so you can see where you want to start. And with this one, you'll note that I have this area down here, which is the table that it's sitting on, and then I want to make sure I allow enough room for a layered cake on a pedestal. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and make my tabletop. You can certainly make it a larger area or a smaller area, or change your mind as you go. So, and I know I will cover that up, but in the center, I also kind of want to make sure my pedestal plate is going to be, it's a little bit below the center line that I have, and I want the plate to come out to about there. So what I'm doing is just really making tick marks so that I can then connect the dots. It's a lot easier to do that than to kind of start with a bold stroke and then kind of have to redirect that, because when you have these little tick marks, you're basically doing the shape, but you haven't committed to anything yet. And again, don't overstress that it has to be perfect or exactly. So I still end up going a little bit sketchy. That's just my preferred approach. You can certainly go another one. And again, this is art. It's not a photograph, so it doesn't have to be perfect. So I've got my pedestal, and I want to go ahead and put the base down here. And I'm just going to nice and centered. And my ovals are going to be the same perspective as much as possible. So then I'm going to make sure it can stand up okay. And I will change that shape as I add color, but you can see how I'm getting the shape. And then as I work, I will cover up all of my marks. So now I'm going to do the cake. So depending on how much room you left in your composition will determine how tall or how big your cake is. So I'm going to make sure that I have enough room up here for my strawberries on top. So I'm going to make probably a little bit shorter cake than this one here, just because of how I've positioned it on the page. And then I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to have it take up the majority. It's going to sit on that pedestal and take up the majority of it. So then I'm just going to follow my curve here, pretty much, and you can kind of see how I'm going ahead and adding it the 3-dimension, because that helps me see kind of where I'll end up taking that slice out. So I'm just going to go straight up. Again, feel free to be sketchy. You can start with a lighter color too if you want to. And this is going to be the top. I want it to go this high. So I'm going to move that over. I'm not going to show too much of the top, because that's not as interesting as the other parts of our artwork. So you can see we have somewhat lopsided, but we have a cake. So you can fix that if you're really, really concerned about it being, you know, not a lopsided cake. But I've made many cakes that kind of end up, when I bake them, kind of been lopsided. So that's probably reminiscent of my baking abilities. So then I'm going to go in, and we're working on that slice. So I want the majority of the area to be that interesting inside of the cake. So I am making that decision here, that this is going to be the area where my slice is. You can make yours smaller or larger. And then it's going to come from the, now it can be, depending on your angle, you can make it so that it's larger on one side than the other. So I'm not going straight down the middle on this one, which will kind of an interesting tension in the drawing. And then I'm going to go straight down, and then I will bring this up to that point. You can see now that we have the inside of our cake. And probably a good way to really see that is then when you go in and you add the layers to sketch them in, they're going to be at an angle that's following these lines. So you're going to go at an angle. They don't go straight across. They follow the angle of the lines up there. So now you see we have our cake on our pedestal. We won't worry about the strawberries on top or whatever you want to put on top, but I just kind of draw them out so that I make sure that I don't cover that space. I'm just going to give it a little bit of an area so I don't cover that space, and I'll go back and work on it. So now with this, you can start working on adding, basically painting with the chalk pastels. So you can start really anywhere you want. One of the, I think, the challenging things about like a chocolate cake is that you don't want it to be like all one color, your chocolate brown. Think about it in terms of where the light's coming from. So if you imagine that you have a light source over here at this angle, then this side is going to be lighter. It's going to catch the light over here, and this side is going to be just darker. And then with the light over here back behind, this is in shadow and this is catching that light. So it's a kind of a trick with the eyes, but that's how you can kind of get your light source going, and then you don't have like shadows going all over the place or no shadows at all, because you want some areas to be darker and some to be catching the light. So that's how I plan it here, is that my light source is coming from over here. And with that in mind, this is going to be darker. So I can go ahead with my darkest dark, my darkest chocolate. And don't worry about it being nice and crisp and clean, because if you did that, then as you work, it's going to smudge up again. So you'll just end up kind of crisping it up at the end. And so you can just put your shadow areas in. And this is really dark. We're going to go back on top of it. I'm going to have some shadow in here, some dark. Kind of follow your line, just like that. You're going to have some dark here. I mean, you can put it really anywhere, because there will be obviously some areas that can take the dark. And I'm going to put a lighter color on top of it too. So you start kind of adding in. And I'm very generous with my application. I do like to not see the colored paper that I have underneath that, so that ultimately it doesn't matter what paper I have under there. Some just, sometimes it just kind of helps with the color if it's a lighter one. Now, I'm going to go in and start adding some lighter colors right in here. This is just a lighter brown. You can see I'm just laying color down. I'm not worried about exactly how it looks right now, because I can go play with it. And this is going to be in the dark area. We'll have a little bit of edge of icing. And then when we get to this lighter area, you can play with it a little bit. So like I'm going to go in and add this light color right here. I know it looks like it's kind of a different color or wrong color palette, But when you go in and blend it with other colors, you start to kind of get an idea that it's just to reflect the light source. And you can keep your application very sketchy and painterly, or you can make it very, very smooth. So we'll start sketchy and painterly, and then I'll show you some super smooth that you can do. But you don't want to have the paper showing through. And when you think about chocolate icing, I mean, it's a lot of brown. So play with the colors, because it doesn't have to be all that one color, because that wouldn't be as interesting as getting some different colors in there. And then you can even throw in, a lighter color here. It's going to help smooth that out. And a lighter color in here, because that's where it's really hitting right in there. A little bit on top here. My page keeps wiggling on me. And so, again, we're sketched in. We are going to leave that as is right now. I'm getting a little bit of the chalk off my hands because I'm going to go lighter. I'm going to work on this inside part. So it's a little tricky because it's really, the cake is all the same color, right? But this is going to end up being darker so that actually you can get the dimension in there. So we're going to start with a lighter color to get that lighter color of our white cake in there. I'm just going right on top of my lines because some of those lines will show through. I'm going to make that nice. And with using the yellow paper here is I will still get a little tint of that yellow. So it's not a solid, kind of a pure white anyway. And then I'm going to put some white over here. And I'm just kind of sketch it in. But I'm actually going to change to a different color, one of these colors, because this is going to be in shadow. So I want it to be different from one side to the other, even though it's the same color of the cake. And then as you get a lot of dust on your piece, you can just kind of shake it off. If you are working alone or you have the space, you can just blow on it. But you have to be careful that you're not going to blow chalk dust on your neighbor. Okay, so we've got some color in there. We're going to keep working on that, but we've got a good base. I'm going to get a little lighter in here. And you can actually have it follow the line, your pieces, so it kind of go at an angle, just like that. And then I still want that, I'm just layering the color on here, because I can go on top of it really as much as I want. Once I start to blend it, it's not as easy to layer. And really, you're going to add some of that brown in there. And to do that, just go very lightly. We're going to blend it, so I'm not worried about exactly what it looks like right now, but when you blend that in there, it's going to put this in shadow. And I want to go ahead and add this edge to my icing, which the light's hitting, and add that edge there. So I'm going to enclose this with my color. So you can see that there's actually a layer of icing there before you get to the cake. I'm going to do all the same color right now, and then I'm going to go over this one. Just want to make sure I'm really dark on that side so it shows up. And then if I don't want it that yellow, I can just go back over it. There's a brown in my set that's kind of like, it's really a nice neutral brown, so it's not too dark, it's not too light, it's not too warm, not too cold. And then you kind of go over and kind of tame some color by using that. It's the same one I used in there. So you will have a little edge to your cake. That's the base of the cake right there. You can kind of just establish that. So, and you actually, just visually, you do see a little bit of a darkish shadow. If you look at shadows, or where the light hits it, it tends to be darker right in the crease, the turn, just a little bit in some cases before it goes light. So I'm going to pause for a moment. Well, I'm not pause, but I'm going to change, and I'm going to go in and blend some of these colors. Just before I'm going to go to the pedestal after that. So you can take the Q-tip and you can blend it just like that. And I just keep using, you know, fresh ends because you want to just make sure that you're not moving around too much color that starts to get dirty and transferring to another place. So you can do that. You can take your finger and smooth it like that. Your fingers will get really dusty, and you'll have fuzzy edges. And then you can see where you need to go in and add some more chalk to something, because if you see something showing up that you know you want it covered, you can go in and add more. Because you want to see that edge so that there's a top and the bottom. We don't have that well right here, so we will make sure that we get that edge in there. You notice we're still very fuzzy on our ends. When we put in our background color, we will change that. I'm going to go in and smooth that out with my fingers. And I'll do a lot of smoothing, and then I can go in and add some crispness to it. Okay. So I still have some areas that I'm not completely covered, but I'm going to move on. Okay. So now we have a chocolate cake-ish. Let's go and put our pedestal color in. I like this kind of like aqua bluish color. It could be really any color you want. So just kind of go in and lay down the color. And you're just going right up next to what you just did. You don't want the yellow to show through. You want to go right up to that edge. And that's also a way you can kind of crisp up your artwork as you go. Either way, either with the color of the cake or with the color of this pedestal that is a little off center. You go in and lay down your color like you did with the other. Just lay it down. And you're going to go in and make some areas lighter and some areas darker. And adjust your sketch as needed. Putting lots of color down. Just like that. I'm going to go ahead and put lots of color down here. Now it's going to be basically all the same color until I add in the shadow and light. But you need that shape. So, and we can add a different color to add in the shadow area. For sure. So right now it's going to look really flat. You can make your pedestal as fancy as you want. You can keep mine simple for right now. And you can go in, you're going to have some shadow area there, but you're going to go in, it's going to be a little bit lighter here. So you can go in and make this lighter, just like that. And you're going to kind of whip it around this corner because this corner is lighter. So you're going to get that distinction. That's going to be dark over there. And then you're going to get light right in here. It's probably getting more light than it actually would, but it helps define the shape with a different color. Just like that. And then you can go in with different blues. You can just use, even though your main color is that aqua, you can use a different blue for shadows or darker areas as it comes around. It starts to kind of distinguish the areas, just like that. Get some base here. And then you have a shadow that's right in here. Coming from the cake. And you can also go super dark in some areas, but I would do it very lightly, and you can even wait till the end if you need something to be punched. But it's makes sense to have some areas that are very, very much in shadow. So you get the idea. And see our background gets messier and messier. So we're going to go back up to the front of the cake where the slice is, and we're going to add our layers. So I'll show you on this one. So we're going to go in and add the filling on the inside between the layers of the cake. And so that's going to give it some dimension as well, the angles. So right in here right now we don't have that. So we're going to go in with a neutral color right now. I'm going to use my paper here, trying to find an edge and get that delineated. Is at an angle. And then I'm going to do the other side as well. You can turn your page if you want to as well, your paper. It's easier to see. Just want to get that lined up as best you can. And then it doesn't have to be this, it could be if you wanted to be a little bit of a strawberry filling as well. You can add a little bit of that to there. Both sides. And then I'll go ahead and blend this. You can get that all the way in that area. Cover up as much of that yellow as we can. Again, this is not about it being super realistic, so some things are just in gesture. Meaning it's, if you step back from it, your eyes will read it how it's supposed to be without you having to put everything in there that you know would be there. Either it's a color or a shape. You don't have to put it there because our eyes and our brains fill in the gaps, which is really cool. And it's not saying that's abstract. It just means that you don't have to give every little bit of information, and our brains can do the rest. Okay. Now, we will go ahead and, of course, finish this with some details. But I'm going to show you how, at this point, I'm not quite finished with the cake. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put in this background here, because it helps me to kind of sit back and kind of anchor the rest of the drawing while I'm putting in a background. Some people wait until the very end to put the background in, but I'm going to do it this way. It just kind of helps me kind of clean things up too. So and you can use your paper for that too. So I'm going to go with this kind of a neutral grayish blue. Establish my line there, going both ways. And then I'll show you kind of, because this is a messy edge right here, right? So if you go in with the edge, as best you can, with the edge of your background piece of chalk, then you actually can crisp things up. You can use the side of the chalk to cover large areas, or you can use the end. It doesn't matter, but sometimes if you want to get a lot down at first and then go in and fill it in, you can do it that way. Or if you just want to work more quickly, you still want to take your time around the edges. And right now this is all one color, and I will add a shadow. So you can see how it crisped up that edge, and then I can go back and forth. And then crisp that up even more. So you start to get much more distinct there. And we were going to go on the other side as well. Use the broad side. Got chalk all over my hands. And the point is you cover up your background as completely as possible. At least I do, because depending on what color I use to begin with, I may not want it to show through. But you could use that as a design element if you wanted. Now I've got, on this one, I used kind of a neutral kind of cream color, but I think I'm going to go with something else here. Instead. So you can do really any choice you want. So we're going to go with a little bit stronger color, I think, than the one I used on the example. So it's really close to the color of the paper, but it's going to just dull it down. But chocolate cake looks good with a warm background, so we'll go with a color that works with that. And then as you're getting right up to that edge, you can crisp things up, you can clean things up all the way around. Add that back there. With your lighter colors, you'll tend to kind of pick up other chalk color that you've used. So it can get a tendency to kind of be, kind of have some different colors in there, which you can blend out. And coming around this edge, and then coming around, giving an edge to our cake. Your background is already dusty, so hopefully this will make it look less dusty once we blow it off. So we are getting a little bit of a nice crisp edge there. We don't have it here yet, so I'm going to do a little work on this. Now, a lot of times I will turn the paper But in this case, I'm going to kind of turn myself so I can get in here and clean that edge up as best I can. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same here on this darkest edge of our cake. I said it's best to kind of just move your paper around so you can get a really good angle on it. And then you can use, sometimes you even kind of use a little bit of black on your brown to really make it dark, if you chose to do that. Give a little dramatic on it, a little drama. And then you're just going to go all the way around, adding your background color. Trying to get it move it around so that you get an edge to work with. Going to give you a cleaner line. Sometimes it's hard to find that edge when you've used your chalk a lot. And you'll come back around here and do the same here. Put background in there. When we get to the top, I'm going to cover it so I don't smudge my cake. We haven't done our strawberries on top, so I have to leave that open a little bit. Clean up my edges. Clean my fingers. Like I said, the lighter colors can pick up a lot of the dust from the darker colors. Which sometimes is not so bad because it adds a little definition. Go in like that. Get right up to that edge if I can, so that we get a little bit crisper edge. And go back over here. Color here. And then I'll just add a little bit of red to our strawberry. So they're not obviously going to be solid red. I have some highlights in there too, and some dark areas. So we'll do that. And get a little orange in there. Just play around with the colors. Do the colors that you like. Hit it with the highlight. And then, believe it or not, we're just going to put a little blue in there. I will blend our shadow areas. Okay, they're not particularly sharp right now, but you know that you kind of go in once you have the shape, and you can get that nice and sharp as much as you want. I mean, if you want it to be a bit more loose and abstract. So you would want to just fill all this out. Cover up your yellow background. Nice solid area. And then we do want to do just this little bit of shadow area because, again, our light source is coming from over here, and we want to just have that reflected on our base as well. So you would come with, you can do a couple of layers for the shadow. I kind of start with a lighter one. Put that in there. Give it a little smudge. And then go in with dark. And that dark that we used. Come right in here and make that the darkest part. Just like that. And then you can go in and really pronounce these areas as darker. Around this corner is darker. Right in there. A little edge there. Then you can also go in and give some lighter areas. So you go back and forth, light then dark, until you get what you want. And sometimes you can take a white and get a good crisp edge on something. But I think we'll stop there. You get the idea. You can go in and spend some time blending to get sharper edges. Like I showed you before, you kind of take the edge of your chalk and get that nice edge in there and just get a nice clean line. And then you can blend that a little bit. So I would probably spend some time up at the top, and I would probably blend in some of these shadow areas until I got what I liked. Because that background could also be smooth too. We'll just smooth that a little bit. You can see you kind of go in and just smooth it out. You can do it all the way around. Just with a light touch, kind of fill in those areas like that. And you can also do it on the blue, as long as your hands are not wet. And kind of fill in those areas that the chalk did not attach to. You can always see how you kind of smooth it in, just like that. So this is our finished piece. Well, I'll probably work on it a little bit more, but this is what we were doing, and I hope you enjoyed it. So play around with it. Don't be afraid to make a mark. And if you don't like it, just work back on top of it. And then don't worry about it. It's fuzzy along the way because you can go and crisp it up at the end. And then the nature of soft pastels is they're soft. So just kind of lean into that and have your piece still have that soft feeling. So anyway, hope you enjoyed it. And I'll see you next time.